I heard some groans back in the back of the room because they remember what it was like 17, 18 years ago when I first got here. What I expect to find is I expect to find a lot of little problems, a lot of cobbling together of the law, a lot of cobbling together of policies and procedures that have created these difficult processes that make it so difficult for state government to be as responsive to the business needs and to the citizens' needs as we would like it to be. That doesn't mean that I expect to find some big low-hanging fruit that I can just pick off and say, okay, great, there's 10%. I don't expect anything like that, but I do expect to have lots of obstacles in their way. I expect to find a lot of good people, as I found here, a lot of really good people, good technical, sharp people who are tied up in knots because of the system that they work in. That's what I expect to find, and those are the kind of things I want to address.
Well, no, let me give you one other. Let me throw one more out here to get myself in trouble. Here we got Dean Ringel here. He's an engineer. Could you pave more roads? Could you fix more bridges if you didn't have prevailing wage?
Yes, we could.
How much more? 25%? 20%?
Yeah.
Okay. So here we have a law in place that drives up the cost of college education. Now, I had a guy come in to see me who's involved in building dormitories around the country. He told me that if we just got rid of the prevailing wage like we've done for schools, but I think they tried to put that back in through this, what's that?
Yeah, that this was a temporary
Facilities Commission, where they were, ordering people to hire their friends. Think about how much money we would, he said, John, you would save 30 to 40%. I mean, that's just his theory. I don't know if it's true. 30 to 40% on building dormitories. Now, when you build a dormitory, it costs people money. So, if we could figure out a way to change this prevailing wage law, I'd prefer to repeal the whole darn thing. But if we can make progress in some areas, we could allow people to provide more services at a lower price. Isn't that it's kind of a cool idea. I was talking to a Democrat the other day. I said, I brought this up to him. And he said, well, yeah, I got that. I said, I know you're for it, and you'll have to be against it. Can you figure out a way to punch me in the nose without making me bleed whenever I propose it? The same is going to be true on collective bargaining reform. Everybody wants it. It's just a matter of where we go on this thing. We are going to have collective bargaining reform. It's just a matter of how far we go. Okay, now I give you all these nuggets every day. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, do you have time in your first budget to do significant tax reform? Do you anticipate you'll have your first budget without it and then look at it for your second budget?
You mean tax reform like Joe's talking about?
Significant, to revisit the tax reform that you had said on the campaign trail. You thought that it needed to be looked at.
You mean the cap tax?
Right.
Yeah, well, we have to look at that. But no, the focus is going to be balance the budget, restore the income tax cut. And if we get that done, right, we will get that done, you'll all be in shock because you've all been saying it can't be done. So, and I know there'll never be a, yeah, you were right, but I know that day will never come. But that's where we focus. But the question about the cap tax is, how does it affect all the industries? Is it the best way to tax? We don't know because we don't have enough of us yet around to do all the analysis that we want. I don't want to scare people saying we're getting rid of the cap tax. I focused on the income tax, but said that when people ask me about it, we need to check it out. I mean, my problem with the cap tax is it taxes gross income, not net. And and then there was a negotiation between large companies and small companies, but I just don't know, and I don't want to open that door at this point. Okay.
If your focus is going to be, balancing the budget and restoring the income tax cut without, everybody pretty much says a lot of the low-hanging fruit has been picked, or it's not going to make up a significant portion of $8 billion. So that leaves, large areas like prisons, Medicaid reform, K-12, and higher education.
What was that low-hanging fruit that they picked?
Well, I know Joe said there's a bunch of little
No.
pieces here and there, maybe.
No, I said I don't expect to find any. That's like a 10% reduction, because the question was, you want to make a 10% reduction. I was trying to respond to that question.
Okay, but my point is that maybe the easy stuff has already been done.
I don't think so. I mean, first of all, easy.
Is there $8 billion worth of easy?
No. But when you say easy, easy meaning what? I mean, there are so many decisions that have been put off. Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you think we should put a person who, a check kiter or somebody that's been put in prison for 8 months in a state pen? Why didn't they fix that? I mean, you know what it costs to put somebody in the state pen? We approach, I don't know if it's, I'm going to throw a number out and I'll get in trouble, but I've been told 30–40% of our prisoners are in the state pen for less than a year. Why did we fix that? Why do I want to put somebody in the, why do I want to put somebody that doesn't pay child support in a state prison where they can't pay child support because guess what? They're in prison, instead of putting them somewhere and forcing them on a work detail or, you know, home confinement or county jail or, you know, in a place where the public is safe and yet they, you know, we can cut our costs. Now, to me, that's low-hanging fruit. I don't know, why hasn't that been done?
Non-violent drug offenders in that category?
Anybody
non-violent drug offenders.
Well, we're going to look and see what we think makes the most amount of sense, but because they don't want to have to make a decision about this stuff, okay? To me, that's completely rational, and I think the public buys it. I noticed there are editorials in all the newspapers across the state saying that we should think about this sentencing reform. Mark was asking me about it the other day. I think it makes total sense, and it would save us money. Prisons, by the way, are the most unreformed part of state government across the country. Nobody has figured this out. I called Bill Bratton, the police chief of New York, the transit chief in New York. He was the head of the LA Police Department, very progressive guy on policing. I wrote a book, I read it, got excited. I called him up, I said, tell me about prisons. He said, no one's figured it out. Well, we have to figure it out. So, do I consider that low-hanging fruit? Yeah, I do, actually. I think that's something that we ought to be doing, something we should think about and do. But no, I'm not going to say this is going to be a totally easy process. It's not. But I'm asking the people who are going to be affected to tell me what I can do to help them. Let's just take a local government. You think these local governments want to be stuck with binding arbitration? I'm serious. You have somebody, I don't know if you all know what binding arbitration is. When there's a labor dispute, they bring somebody in from Kokomo, Indiana. He comes into Ohio. He imposes a settlement on our cities. He goes back to Kokomo and we pay the bill. Our local governments don't want that. It drives up the costs. So we're looking at ways to mitigate any of the reductions in dollars that people get. You know, how do we make it easier for them to be able to cope with it?
On that last point, wasn't binding arbitration adopted as a way to eliminate the possibility of public safety forces striking?
Right. If they want to strike, they should be fired under this, you know, you should not allow, you know, look, you can have a change in the law that says, you know, and again, these decisions are not finally made, but, you know, there are ways to say that you're not going to strike and we're going to continue negotiations without a binding arbitrator. There's all kinds of ways to do it. What I know is that our cities are facing bankruptcy. And if you talk to the mayors of cities, Republicans and Democrats alike, Democrats will tell you off the record that we can't stand binding arbitration. I mean, this became very clear to me when I was down at one of Ohio's great newspapers, the Dayton Daily News, and I think that's where it was. And one of the big schmoes down there asked the question of binding arbitration. And I think I said at the time it was a real problem. I mean, one of the things you think about is let the people vote. Okay, there's another alternative. We'll come up with a series of changes, but binding arbitration is not acceptable. You are forcing increased taxes on taxpayers with them having no say by people who come from a faraway place that have no accountability to the taxpayers.
And just make sure I'm clear, you do not think police and fire emergency services should have the right to strike?
I really don't favor the right to strike of any public employee. Okay, that's my personal philosophy. How practical that is to implement, you know, but my personal philosophy is I don't like public employees striking. Okay, they got good jobs, they got high pay, they got good benefits, a great retirement. What are they striking for? So,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.